hit the gavel, and then start from there. Please have your attention.
May I please have your attention?
Do the Pledge of Allegiance. Right, ladies and gentlemen, go ahead. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. I'm Rudra Agarwal.
Tell them what pack you're with.
I'm with Troop 511, Burlington.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Okay. Oh, where did I get the low chair again? All the time. Yeah, I feel like a midget. Mr. Sagarino.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This evening, we have a very special retirement to acknowledge in our police department. Thank you to everybody from the department that showed up here tonight to show you support. We appreciate the work that the men and women of the Burlington Police Department do for our residents every single day. I'd also like to thank K9 Havoc's handler, Joe Papsadero. Most people around town know Joe, but what they may not know is that Joe is one of the most respected K9 handlers in New England, and we're so fortunate to have him and his skill level and the passion that he brings to this position, so I want to thank him as well. But right now, I'd like to turn it over to Chief Kent for a couple words about our retiree.
Thank you very much. You know, you touched on Joe, and I think anyone knows with canines, the handler and the canine are one. And we're very fortunate to have Joe, and I feel I should give you a little bit more of his background. He's been with the law enforcement for 25 years. He's been a canine handler in Burlington since 2005 and has had 3 dual-purpose canines. The first one was Alex from 2005 to 2009. He was trained in patrol and narcotics detection. Then Havoc from 2010 to 2020. And then in 2018, knowing that Havoc was getting older, he brought in Argo, who is basically took over for Havoc totally upon his retirement. And he's trained in patrol and explosive ordnance detection. Joe has spent thousands of hours training at Canine Academy courses, formal canine in-service, numerous seminars. He's a novice judge for the USPCA and needs only 6 more dogs to be certified as a regional judge for their field trials. He has participated in numerous public demonstrations and community events. He's raised Havoc to be the type of animal that can be multi-purpose. You don't have to worry about him when you're at a community event. He's just as good with children as he is tracking a felon. Joe's also been a 12-year member of NIMLAC, where he's responded to many calls, and I would suggest anyone in Burlington who's on Twitter, you may want to follow him at Burlington PD K9. He's a very interesting follow. So, Havoc.
boy, Chief, he's a little attention right there.
You can see Havoc is appreciated. These are the 4 to 12 guys here that work with him every night. He's a 95-pound German Shepherd born April 9, 2009 in Slovakia. He was imported by the Connecticut Canine Services and was chosen as the next Burlington Canine by Officer Papsadero and Boston PD Master Canine Trainer. February 15, 2010. He attended both patrol and narcotics detection school at the Boston Police Department Canine Academy, graduated in July of 2010. In addition to being certified by the Boston Police Department Canine Academy, Canine Havoc earned national certifications in patrol tracking and narcotics from 3 of the largest national canine organizations: United States Police Canine Association, International Police Work Dog Association, and North American Police Work Dog Association. He spent thousands of hours training formally at Canine in-services, seminar, and workshops. Havoc has competed many times in the U.S. PCA Region 4 field trial and was the overall novice champion in 2011. He has also competed in other events, including Connecticut Canine Olympics, the Green Mountain Iron Dog, and the Northeast Canine Police Canine Challenge, where he finished third and earned the first place in narcotic detection. Havoc deployed hundreds of times throughout his career in Burlington and other community. He has assisted in many arrests. He was instrumental in finding numerous missing people and made a large number of narcotic finds. A 10-year member of NIMLAC Canine Unit, he participated in many major events, including response to the city of Boston after the Marathon bombing and the city of Watertown during the manhunt for the bombers. Canine Havoc received a commendation for meritorious service from the Burlington Police Department, and in May 2012 was recognized by the New England Narcotics Enforcement Officers Association for an Outstanding Contribution Award for his role in a large narcotics case. In addition to that, I can tell you there's a file this thick with thank you letters to Joe and Havoc for the work they've done over the last 10 years. So, personally, I just want to give a very sincere thank you. Now, I just asked Joe here, you know, how's Havoc feel about not going out the door, because Joe gets called out at all hours of the day and night, and he's telling me that his wife tells him that he cries for about a half hour after Joe leaves with the other dogs. So retirement's going to take a little getting used to, but I can't thank the both of them enough for the job they do.
Thank you. Gentlemen, Jimmy, we'll start with you. You work with Joe, so.
Just to echo what the chief said, not only is Havoc's reputation well known, Joe's reputation as a canine handler all throughout New England is well known. The two of them make a great pair, and Alex, when you look at Alex's success, Havoc's success, and I'm sure Argo will be successful, the one common denominator is the handler Joe, and I can't say enough about him. He's a professional, he's good at what he does, he's great at what he does, and we're very, very happy to have him.
Michael?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. 10 years actually equates to over 70 years in Havoc's life, so that's a significant amount of time on the job here in Burlington. We've had a long history of having canine here in Burlington. We go back to, I remember Officer Hovass at one time was our canine officer, so we're going back quite a few years. Certainly a good thing for our community, so I want to thank Havoc and thank Joe for the wonderful work you've done here in Burlington and for our residents and elsewhere, and we look forward to seeing you out there with your new partner shortly.
Mr. Priest?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I mean, these gentlemen summed up quite nicely, and Chief, thank you for all your words. You're right, 10 years, 70 years in the dog side. That's absolutely incredible. It doesn't surprise me that he spends a half an hour crying at the door. I mean, when my dad retired, I think he did the same thing. But in all seriousness, thank you for everything you do, Joe. For training these dogs, and it's no joke that these dogs truly are trained. I mean, the fact that Havoc can sniff out a bomb or hunt down a criminal, but then be great around kids. And that's, it's a testament to the type of dog he is and the trainer you are. And so, I'm very thankful that we have you here in town. I know the residents are thankful. And this is just a great opportunity to acknowledge that and everything you and your compatriots are doing for our community. So thank you.
Okay, Joe, my turn. I don't know where to start. First of all, I want to thank everybody in the back for coming. A lot of police officers back there who love the dog, so your question, we'll put that right out there. Joe, I remember when you started. It was a long, long time ago, so I didn't know if that was what Mike was going to be referenced to, was the 70, but then I realized he was talking about the dog at that point, so I apologize for that aspect of it. But on a serious note, Joe, the town would like to thank you, me personally. We know that we hear a lot in this office about what the dog has done, what you have done with the dog. We expect nothing else but the new dog to be the same way, because that's the person you are. You have a Class A personality. You want that dog to act the right way around people, off people, when it's going after somebody, and that's just the person you are, which reflects onto your dog. So all I can say is thank you. Before I'm done, I was told not to bring out something, because the dog would go absolutely crazy. So I'm just gonna hand you this bag, and I might not take this out, this piece right here, because I could just call, is that how it works? Should I do it?
We just said nice things about the dog, Joe.
No, this isn't for you, this is for Havoc, and don't give it to your mastiff either, okay? This is for Havoc. You know what, I'll just show everybody, so, I'm not gonna show him what he wants me to, but Havoc won't see this. This is for Havoc. Most people get a plaque, most people get something to go on the wall. Havoc gets a chicken.
Yeah, he's noticed.
All right? Now, it was kind of talked into not getting him a real one. So, there you go. Joe, seriously, thank you so much. That's for Havoc, so come up here and grab that and thank the rest of you. You're awesome. Good shot. There you go, buddy. Thank you. Oh, whoa, what's in there? It's all yours. Oh, yeah. You want a picture with the chief and the dog? Yep. Oh, oh, us too? Yeah, why not? No, after what I just said, he might bite me.
Chief, you want to throw it? That's fine.
Come on, Paul.
Oh, word.
Yeah, really, huh?
Not here?
Thank you, Evan.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thanks. Some good fellow. I don't want to drive the streets. Chief, can you help me? I want a ticket. I want to get it later. Okay. Moving right along, Mr. Sagarino.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next item is, we have our Public Works Director, John Sanchez, here with a promotion in the Water Sewer Division. I'd like to thank all the employees from the Public Works who were in the back who came out to support tonight's promotion. Now I'll turn it over to John.
Thank you, Paul. Mr. Chairman, good evening, everybody, tonight. So we're very excited to recommend Kyle LeBrecq for this job. Kyle has been with us for well over a year, filling in temporarily for one of our employees who recently retired. So tonight, I'm recommending him for the position as a full-timer with us. He's been working to obtain some of the licenses that we need for that particular job, but as far as the job is concerned, working, whether it's water, plowing for us in the winter time, as well as working in the sewer department where he's going to be stationed, he's already been doing that for well over a year, like I said. So we're very excited to recommend him, and I hope that the manager will appoint him tonight.
Thank you, John. With John's recommendation, I appoint Kyle LeBrecq to the position of pump station operator in the Burlington DPW Water Sewer Division and ask that the board waive its 15-day waiting period.
Second.
Motion moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Here tonight?
Yep, you'll bring him up?
Congratulations. Appreciate it. Welcome aboard. Thank you, sir.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
Sure, you don't know us yet. Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next up, we have a request for the use of the town common for a great event by Sergeant Scipoletti from the Burlington Police Department, who's back in the room now.
Get your picture with the dog?
I did.
All right, no boy. Just making sure.
Follow the dog.
Hi, good evening. Here to ask for permission to use the Common on Saturday, June 13th, for another, or our second annual Cops and Cars Car Show. It's an event that we did first time around last year. It was a successful event. We had a car show on the town common, for anyone who's not familiar with it, where we just invited people to come up and show their cars and interact with the police officers that were there. Needless to say, before it was over, people were asking when the second one was going to be. So we're here to do it again with pretty much the exact same plan. Any of the profits that are raised as a result of that are going to be donated to people helping people. Everything that we come up with is going to go to that organization, just as it did last year.
Okay, gentlemen, we'll start, Mr. Priest.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have no questions. I think this is a fantastic event. I'm glad that it was very well received by the community. So, yeah, no questions from me.
Michael?
No, sir, I'm good.
Timmy?
Just a quick question, Sarge. How can you top last year's success? It was an overwhelming success. It was a great time, great day. How many, do you have a count of how many cars were there?
My goal was 50 to not be embarrassed and 100 to really have a good showing, and we ended up with about 150. The weather has a lot to do with that, as you all are familiar with. So good weather, we expect another successful day. And I will say, as just kudos to the town, all the comments that I received, the majority of them, anyway, 90, 95%, were the common is just in terrific shape. It was a great location. You know, people like putting the cars on the grass a little bit, and, you know, there was no damage. It was nice. It was just a nice setting. There are benches there. There's shade there. It's not your typical parking lot car show. So our goal is to make it a little bigger again and just kind of do the same thing. Thank you.
What's that? Actually, I have a couple. Do you have a rain date for this?
Our goal was the next day
Okay.
to shoot for Sunday the 14th, if it's available.
Okay.
Just, you know, we're staying away from graduation at the high school prior and Father's Day after that, so just shooting for that.
So it's a Saturday and Sunday. The question I have is, most of the time, everyone that uses the common usually uses this facility for the bathrooms or the police station for the bathrooms. How did that work out last year? It was a Saturday.
Great question. If there was a drawback, it was probably the distance of the bathrooms from where the people were. We didn't use this building. We used the police station. You know, for some of the younger people, you know, the walk wasn't so bad. For some of the people my age, I'll say, and up, it's a little bit of a walk. You know, we discouraged them going over to the gas station just because it's a busier crossing. So we sent them over to the police station. You know, if there's something we could improve upon, it might be.
So let me just touch on something, and don't get me wrong, I am for this event 1,000 times over. It was last year, it was phenomenal. I got up to the very end, but I saw a couple other cars. We as a town, we use that common an awful lot, and everyone uses this bathroom or one of them. So would porta potties be something that we want to start to think about, letting them allow them to put porta potties at their cost, to put porta potties on the common for a day or 2 days, whatever it is? Is that something that the board would be interested in looking into? I'm not saying he's going to be the first one to do it this year, but is it something?
I thought we have from time to time, Joe.
I don't remember, that's why I brought up. Oh, look at that, Mr. Sanchez. Yeah, absolutely, come right up.
Just to clarify that, yes, a porta potty has been used in the past for different activities, and many times are located between the annex and the fire department. That's where they place them, instead of the common itself.
Okay. So, thank you for
That's all I
that. Is that something the board would like to look into, instead of them using this building or the police station or crossing the street? Number one, for a safety factor, and number two, just to have it right there.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I'm definitely in favor of the porta potties. I just don't know the cost, because if it's something, and I don't want to be presumptuous, Paul, but if it's something that the town could absorb, then, I mean, their profits, their event benefits people helping people. And if they have to pay for them,
So,
that's less the people helping people will get. So I don't know if that's a possibility. If it is, I think that might be a better choice, but.
there's no question about it, but if we were to do that, every festival or everything that goes on the common, when there's a porta potty, we'd be paying for it,
Yeah, that's true.
right?
Here's
It's just a question I want to put, Brent, I didn't mean to put you on the spot for this at all. It's just something I thought about over the weekend.
No,
Oh.
I think it's a great idea, you know, and having them to prevent a crossing is always a positive. If it's something that, you know, I could look into and we would absorb the cost to have them for our event, you know, I see no problem if the board's okay with us looking into that. You know, I would do just, you know.
All right,
like
Mr.
everyone
Chairman,
else.
I think Recreation uses porta potties quite frequently in the summer months as well, so we can check with them on the pricing to see if there's any benefit to jumping onto their contract for particular events, or just to get an understanding of how that process works. We can check with Recreation.
And I understand Jimmy's point of view, like, just, we'll absorb the cost and go from there, but I don't.
Well, the reason I was thinking that it's a town event,
Right.
sponsored by the town, so to speak, not a private event being held on the common.
Right, I could see if there were particular events that were town-sponsored or for nonprofit reasons, you know, like, I mean.
Like the Christmas lighting. That's a
Sure.
town event.
Yeah, exactly.
This is a private event. This isn't a
Yeah.
town event. Like the Dolly Festival, that's not a town event. That's a private entity that runs an event on our common. So I'm just kind of looking at it. It's a subject to discuss, that's all. You know what I mean? Michael, you were going to say something earlier, and then you got interrupted by everybody.
That's okay. I was going to suggest that from time to time, certain events, we've opened up the town hall annex, but the only cost associated is custodial fee for the amount of time the custodian has to be on hand to keep the building open. Might be an alternative.
As opposed to Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yep.
whatever if you get a cost and the cost of a custodian is less, would that
That
be
would make,
something to think about?
Well, that's that's why one of the reasons we used the police station last year. It, I don't want to say circumvented that. I don't mean to sound like that as much as it didn't eat away at anything. Police station, public building, it was open, and we were on that end of the common, so it made more sense.
I like the idea of people not having to cross the street, especially with all the little kids.
okay, so
I guess the answer-
before you approve this, can you check on what they cost? And then you can check with the rec department? And then we'll go from there. We're going to approve it tonight, I'm assuming. We're not, you know, it's got to go through, but it's just a matter of not of whether we have the porta potties out there for this event, or we make a determination on for every other event that comes up. Okay? We all right with that?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so at this point, gentlemen, need a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion to approve the cops and cars use of town common on Saturday, June 13th, with a rain date, Saturday, June 14th, for the second annual event.
Okay, motion by Nick, second by
Second,
Jimmy. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, against? 5-0, 4, where are we? 4 zeros. He's not here again. Thank you, Betty. We're all set.
Thank you very
Enjoy
much.
the event. I hope we'll all be there again. Any advertisement that you need to put a business, just let me know and I can help you out with that stuff.
Appreciate
All right,
that.
especially where I work. We can do that. Okay?
Appreciate that. I haven't done anything yet because I wanted to put
We
everything.
know how you work. Everything's in order.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Bernie. Okay. Mr. Sagarino.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple weeks ago, we received formal notice that Burlington was finally awarded our designation as a green community. This was the culmination of a year-long process to enter the program. The overriding goal of the program was for the town to commit to cutting our municipal energy usage by 20% over the next 5 years. In order to be accepted into the program, we also developed policies for the purchase of fuel-efficient town vehicles and school vehicles, anti-idling policies for vehicles. We confirmed that our zoning allowed as-of-right siting for renewable or alternative energy generating facilities, R&D facilities, and manufacturing facilities, and we also confirmed that our permitting process was timely enough to meet the requirements of the program. We established baseline energy usage and developed an energy reduction plan, and with town meeting support, we adopted the Stretch Energy Building Code to require for energy efficient building projects within the town. We couldn't have done this without the support of the Board of Selectmen and town meeting. We've also received quite a bit of technical assistance from Kristen, Josh, and Liz in the planning department. Retired building inspector John Clancy, current building inspector Andy Ungerson, Bob Kuna from the school department. Most of all, we'd like to thank Rachel Kaplan of the Public Works Department for leading this project. I'd like to ask John and Rachel to come up now to tell us about the good news. As part of being entered into the program, we received a designation grant of $172,000 that we'll be able to use for projects to improve our energy efficiency. And John and Rachel are here to sort of fill us in about the grant. And as being a member of this program, we'll also, going forward, we'll be able to participate and be eligible for additional grants on an annual basis, competitive against other communities for these types of projects. So it took us a long time. We've talked about it at many a selectmen's meeting, and we finally received word that we're accepted into the program. And I'd like to thank you two for all your work on this, and tell us about the funding that we're going to receive.
So before Rachel will fill us in with it, you already know this, but I'm going to voice it. She did all the work. I mean, Rachel
You really
took it from the
you needed to
groundwork
say that?
and went through the whole process, and we're very happy and proud that the initiative was started, and we're going to be able to benefit from it soon and in the future as well. So with that, Rachel, tell us about the grant.
So the designation grant is $173,000. So I'm actually working right now with the Department of Energy Resources. Prior to submitting our designation packet, we had another grant of, I believe, somewhere between $7,000 and $9,000 to help me compile all the necessary information, and they have plenty of templates of the narratives that we have to submit, so we're kind of going through that process right now. We're also reaching out to Eversource to see if there's any initiatives within the utility companies, because there's often ones that they don't publicize, so you got to know who to talk to. And we have quotes already from Rise Engineering, and once we get the designation, we can go out to bid. But our plan right now is to replace the 2 rooftop units on the library, as well as work on the HVAC controls within each room in the library too. So that building has some old systems. We're going to try to spruce it up.
Very good, thank you. Gentlemen, we'll start with you, Michael.
No, I mean, it's always, actually, whenever Rachel's in attendance, it always seems to be good news, so start with that. I know we've been proactive over the past several years, I know, with the energy saving efforts, so this is just sort of keeping on to what we've already been doing, so good. I applaud your efforts there, and I like how you mentioned that some of these programs aren't readily available unless you really get in there and dig, so thank you for staying on top of that. So good, I look forward to it, especially HVAC. I know Jimmy knows, anybody that works in any of our municipal buildings knows that HVAC is a constant issue, so I'm glad we're putting that at the top of our priority list. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Priest.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have no questions at this time. I think this is fantastic. And I'm sure that as we move into more particulars around, upgrading old buildings and, new buildings, I'll have more specific questions. I think it's just great that we're designated as a green community. I'm thankful for all the work that you all, Rachel, have been putting into this. And it's just, one other thing that the town of Burlington can check off as something that we are being as proactive as possible in. So, thank you.
Thank you,
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mike, I'm not really sure I know what you mean. Our air conditioning.
Can't even get it out.
No, our air conditioning works great in the wintertime, and the heat works great in the summertime, so, but, Rachel's homegrown talent. She grew up here in Burlington, and it's great to see, she's, I don't wanna say aggressive with stuff like this, but she's aggressive with stuff like this, not just on the green communities. Everything she does, she tackles, it's successful, and she's a huge asset to the town, and John, your department. So Rachel, thank you for everything you've done for the town. John, thank you, but we have some fantastic homegrown talent working for us.
We do. My turn?
Yep.
Rachel, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
So, everybody's right. Every time you come in here, it's always a positive for the town. How do you say thank you? Thank him for hiring you? Thank you for doing the job? It's a combination. You hire wonderful people, wonderful things happen. She's an asset to the town, and get to the green part of it, that's like icing on the cake. You know, what can I say? You know, you go in the office and it's always pleasant and nice. To have 173,000 coming into us is absolutely incredible. Where do you go with this? Her head must be like this right now. a little bit, you deserve it. So anyway, all we can say is thank you for your office and for what you do for the town. So she'd be going for a raise next week, I know it.
Appreciate the nice words from all of you. It is a big effort. It sounds, you know, when we come here and it's already done, but I know the effort is taken, so I'm grateful with that as well. And you know it, but it's just good to say it again.
Well, please don't let us down. We still have to do the work of reducing the energy by 20% over the next 5 years.
We'll get there.
So.
We'll get there. We have a roadmap and, you know, and all the things we need to do, and we definitely will get there.
All right.
Thank you.
Enjoy it, Rachel.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye. Other wedding plans coming. Mr. Sagarino.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next up, we have another request for the use of the town common. I'm going to turn this one over to Selectman Priest. He has more relevant information.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, the proponent, Adrian, is here this evening, so I'll turn it over to her. I'll just say that, for those of you who don't know, April is Child Abuse Awareness Month. I have recently joined the board of directors for the Mama Bear Effect, which Adrian has founded and has done a fantastic job with over the past several years. And so I'll turn it over to her.
Okay, yep, thanks very much. My name is Adrian Simeone, in case anyone doesn't know me here. 2 years ago, we requested and received approval to use the common for a Child Abuse Prevention Month pinwheel rally, on which it snowed. So that was a lot of fun, and I think that kind of scared us away. So we didn't come back crawling last year asking for permission, but this year we have secured the hall at Grandview, so we have an indoor space so that we can host some activities for families, face painting and different things. We're also going to be hosting a fundraising dinner afterwards. But so we now have some shelter, regardless of the weather. But we would like to ask for permission to, again, plant the pinwheels on the common in front of that Town of Burlington sign, like we did a couple years ago. We just did pinwheels. And then if the weather's good, we want to see if we can get some kids to do some chalk art around the common on the sidewalks, just to kind of give them a little bit something else to do, write some positive messages, and just kind of embrace the community more in this issue. Child abuse is an issue I think that everyone cares about, but it's still kind of a taboo issue, and children as citizens of our country have constitutional right to protection from abuse, but without our voice, they don't know what their rights are, and their rights can't be protected. So I just want to thank you very much for all your support over the years of everything that we've done. I'm really proud to say that 2 years ago we got permission from the school committee that now every member of Burlington school staff has to take a abuse prevention training online every year. So that was a really significant thing, and now I'm also working with the health department to potentially introduce a body safety education course for the elementary kids, something that's being done in a lot of communities across the country, and hopefully we can bring that here into Burlington before it becomes a law.
Fantastic. Do you want to, anything else you want to add to it?
I have nothing else to add.
Okay. Jimmy?
Just one quick question. Will you be doing the pinwheels on the other municipal buildings as well?
Wherever we can get permission to put the pinwheels, I'd like to put them. The police department is always kind enough to give us permission, and we put them in front of the fire department. The post office has given us permission in the past. So wherever you will let us put pinwheels, I'll definitely consider it.
Well, that's why I wanted to check, because...
Yeah, I'm not quite sure where we can get permission to put them.
Michael?
I think we have used police and fire
Yeah.
the past several years, Adrian, if I'm not mistaken. I don't see why you couldn't do that again.
Right.
In addition to the welcome sign out there.
Okay. Is it possible to put some in front of the town hall?
Paul says yes.
Okay.
Listen, pardon me, but the sidewalk chalk
Yes.
idea caught my attention.
Okay.
I'm not sure about that. What exactly did you want to do?
Well, basically, just like put out buckets of chalk on the date of our event, and when they're going out to the common to put pinwheels, we'll have kids write positive messages, things that the people can share on social media, you know, like every child matters, or, you know, kindness matters, all those kinds of just positive messages to kind of just add another element to it. I mean, it'll wash away, so it's not anything permanent, but I didn't know if we needed permission to let the kids do that.
Oh, I think you would.
Okay.
I have some reservations about that piece of it. I love everything you do.
Sure.
I'm just not sure
Yeah.
about chalk on
Well,
a
if
sidewalk.
I may, real quick, so the chalk, Mike, just to make my nieces use it all the time in my father's driveway, and my great nieces, because I'm that old, they use it all the time, and within the first rainstorm, it washes off, or kids walking on it, it comes off. It's not anything that's permanent, there's not anything that stays there. I think maybe one of the concerns would have to be is like, what are they gonna write? What, is there gonna be one kid that writes the wrong saying on there, you know what I mean? I think that would be the only thing. Other than that, I see no harm in it, you know? And I'm just trying to,
I share those same things. I'm just
worried about
thinking
that one
that
kid.
one.
but how many
I know
parents
this.
do you have in the room to monitor, not in the room, to monitor
Well,
like
we'll
what they're
have
writing?
board members there, and I'm also going to reach out. I know personally through St. Malachi's Church, the kids that are on confirmation are looking, they have to get volunteer hours, so we're going to be asking for also some other volunteers to come on board, so we will have adults on the common. Most of the kids that will be attending probably won't be old enough to really be able to write much,
Okay.
but we will have volunteers on
My
hand.
thought process would be, one second, my thought process would be, this is just my opinion, let it happen this year.
Okay.
If it's something that comes up that's not appropriate for the town,
Right.
then we cancel that aspect of the,
Sure.
that aspect of the use of the
Okay.
common.
Yeah, because I will definitely be there, because I will want to be taking pictures of it too.
Right.
And this mama bear ain't letting no kid do anything because God knows it'll probably be one of my kids.
I
So,
understand.
and I invite you to come out and also create some chalk art with us, because I
completely-
feel like you need some in your life,
I
Mike.
understand his concern, so. Jimmy, go ahead.
My only request is that you limit the sidewalk to the interior of the common.
Okay.
Nothing around the perimeter, only because of safety issues.
Yeah, I agree. That was my thought too. Thank you for bringing out that point, yes.
So, and could you go over one more time, day, times?
Yep, it's April 2nd. The event's going to be held from 3 to 5. That's the activity part of it. And then after that, we're having a dinner, so.
And then what day of the week is that?
That's a Thursday.
That's a Thursday, from 3 to 5 on April 2nd, which is a Thursday. Did you get that, everybody that's watching? Okay. So at that point,
And Mike, I will be bothering you about the ugly ties, because I didn't want you to
We
leave.
had,
So I'll be
we had
coming
great
back.
fun with that ugly tie thing.
Well, it's actually grown a lot of speed, and we worked with a lot of nonprofits actually across the whole country doing it. So now that my youngest is a little older, I have a little bit more freedom to come out and harass more of our leadership to get involved in things. So that's why I'm here right now.
Joe, I'll bet Joe would like that ugly tie thing.
Yes.
okay. I don't know what I just got involved in, but I'm in.
Okay.
Is it, wear an ugly tie here?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, that's easy. I wear one every night. So at that point, we need to vote on this. So, motion?
I have to abstain, so.
Oh,
You have to abstain.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 3-0 abstention. All right, you're all set.
Thank you so
Good luck.
much.
Okay, Mr. Sagarino.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next up, we have a request from the town clerk for the board to sign off on the warrant for the annual town election. Betty has the document here, so should we have a vote and then a sign, Betty, or?
Yeah, why don't you tell them about it?
Tell us about it, Paul.
There's a town election.
There's not much to tell on here. It pretty much lists out all the different positions that potentially could be up for election, and just looking for a board signature on the bottom, so.
Okay. Bring it on.
entertain a motion to, please.
Need a motion to what? Approve, did we say?
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a motion on this?
I'll make a motion to approve the,
He's in front of him, so, yes.
approve the
Annual
annual
town election
town
warrant.
election warrant.
Correct.
Okay, so maybe some-
Motion made by Nick, second by
Mike.
Mike. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, 400, Betty. Well, we're signed this. You want to move on to the next one?
No, I didn't.
Because I'm 5 minutes ahead of schedule, and we have a gentleman that has to be somewhere at 7 o'clock, so I'm trying to get that in. Perfect for him. I'm trying. But now you tell me it's a joke. I'm moving things along.
Next up, Mr. Chairman, we just wanted to update the community on some open seats that are available within town government. There's a vacant position on the Burlington Housing Authority. One member is stepping down. It was not done in time to be on the annual town ballot, so that the Board of Selectmen and Burlington Housing Authority will be having a joint session meeting to make a joint appointment, and that's anticipated to take place on March 9th at your meeting. So if there's any members of the community that have interest in that position, please send in a letter to Betty. Just let us know about your interest in the position. And likewise, any members of either board can just select a candidate that they would like to appoint on that evening as well. And whichever candidate gets the most votes between the two boards will be the one that fills the seat.
Okay.
Next up,
We're
we have...
gonna, before we get done with that,
Sure.
the meeting was on March 9th. We're gonna move that to the 23rd, because of a conflict with a couple of things.
Okay.
Okay, so we're gonna move that to March 23rd.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Next up, we have an opening on another appointed board, which is the Board of Appeals.
Okay.
I'm on the Housing Authority, and I have a question about that, so I don't know if you want me to wait until you're finished or ask my question now.
Sure, you want to go now?
Sure. March 23rd, okay, a joint meeting with us, the Housing Authority, and you all, that's fine.
I didn't hear you when you come up here. I'm like, what does she got? Now I know.
I should have
Now I
introduced
know.
myself.
Yes, that
I'm
was- yeah.
Angela Wellsbean, and I'm a Commissioner on the Housing Authority.
Okay. Now I know exactly who you are and what's going on.
That's why I'm here. And so my question is for folks who may be interested in being considered for the appointment, do they need to plan to attend our joint meeting? Are we planning on doing interviews? What do we want the procedure to be?
Whatever you wish. Like I say, we can handle whatever process. Historically, the two boards have just gotten together, and each member has the ability to nominate a candidate and pursue it that way.
So each member of each board can nominate a candidate? Mm-hmm. Okay, so potentially we could have up to 10 nominees.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. We went through this in pretty extensive detail fairly recently with the planning board appointment, and that's basically what the town rules call for. We can do additional steps if that's the desire of the two boards, but
So I guess, Mr. Chairman, if I may, I guess if we have more than a certain number of candidates or applications, we can consider a pre-meeting, or, I mean, I know with the planning board, we had the subcommittee that reviewed and interviewed ahead of time. If anything to that extent is warranted in this case, I don't know. But I mean, to Angela's point, I'd hate to have us all sitting here for 2 hours reviewing 10 candidates in the unlikely event that we have 10 candidates. But I don't know what the wish of everyone else might be.
So the final say is between the Board of Selectmen and the Housing Authority, right?
Yes.
We have whoever has the most votes gets in the position, right?
it's about as simple
So-
as it is, yeah.
Excuse me?
That's about as simple as it is.
Okay.
yeah.
So, I'm trying to think of which way,
Can I,
absolutely.
Can I make a suggestion?
I'm trying to think of the
Mr.
best
Chairman?
way to do this.
Why don't we pick a date, a deadline, for interested parties to apply prior to the 29th. Pick a date, any date, and then, then perhaps take it from there and,
Well, how many meetings do we have between now and the 23rd?
We
Just
have
the one on the 9th?
The 9th and the 23rd are the next two meetings.
Could we say by the 9th? That would give everyone 2 weeks to put in applications, and then at that point, maybe you come back and we say how many applicants we have? And then we
decide
can
on
say,
the
okay,
process.
there's only 3, so we can just go ahead and move it to the 23rd, or we can spend the 2 weeks between those two meetings having a conversation with the subcommittee, perhaps?
Yeah, if there's more than that, I can always do a subcommittee at nighttime.
Right.
Always put that together quick.
Right.
That's an easy one to put together quick and have a quick meeting over here like we did for the ZBA or a couple of the other ones. Does that work? Okay.
I mean, I like the idea of setting a deadline for March 9th, so interested people would submit a letter of interest to your office, and then those would get disseminated to us, so we could all review them.
Send it to the Board of Selectmen's office or to Betty McDonough, and then she can forward it over to you, to your office for the applicants, what the job title is and what it goes for, what they'll be doing. And then at that point, we'll get together and we'll figure out who we think. If there's 6 or 7, we'll knock it down to 3. You know what I mean? So we only gotta bring in 3 candidates.
Okay.
I mean, instead of, like Nick said, going over 6 or 7 candidates in one night is crazy. You know?
Right, so if, say, are you suggesting then, say we do have 6 or 7, we narrow it down to 3, are you suggesting those 3 attend the March 23rd meeting, or no, we would just
I think we'd pick
have a
it, I think it would pick it before the March 23rd meeting.
Okay.
And at the March 23rd meeting, we could determine who's gonna be on the Housing Authority at that point.
Okay, that's the night we would vote amongst ourselves. Okay,
Would vote them in on the 23rd.
okay.
Does that work?
Thank you, yeah, I just wanted clarity
All right.
around the process.
Thank you. All right. So, now, where were we?
We have a vacancy on the Board of Appeals, so there's an alternate seat available. That position's been advertised for more than a month. We received 1 application. Betty informed me that the application deadline's been extended to February 28th on that one. And next up, we have a vacancy on the Conservation Committee. 1 member stepped down, and the seat is available. That has also been advertised for more than a month. We've received 1 response, and we've also extended that application deadline to the 28th, Friday the 28th.
Okay, so real quick, the ZBA has been available for how long now?
Since the young lady was appointed to the planning.
Since Brenda was, okay. And that's been what, 3 months,
Yeah, I think so, right?
right? 3 months? And at that point, we only got one application in. So in that 3 months, we got 1 application, and now we're gonna extend it again. Is there something wrong with the application that we don't, I haven't seen it, so I don't know anything about it, but why aren't we just putting that 1 application on? Why are we extending it?
To that question, Mr. Chairman, if I may, how do we currently advertise for open seats?
We advertise in the Daily Times, and we also advertise in the weekly newspaper, and we ask them to run them as often as possible. And then we also will do our website. If anyone wants to look at our website, they're up there as well, on the Board of Selectmen page.
Okay, so back to the question. If we have one, why aren't we putting it on? We have the right to take anybody off anytime we want if it doesn't work. I don't know who, I don't even know who it is. But if we have an application, we haven't got anybody else, how long are we gonna wait for?
Why don't we do that then? Why don't we get the applications out to the board, and you can look at them, and
All right, we
Let
can
you
send
make
it
a
out.
decision.
We have one. I'm just asking a question. I'm kind of lost right now, to be honest with you. Does anybody agree with me, or am I just?
I echo your frustration, knowing that I think just general turnout and involvement and engagement is difficult.
We've had this before.
This is not a, yeah, I mean, this is not the first time this has happened. I think maybe, as we move forward, we need to find other ways to reach people. I don't know what that is, which is why I asked, how we're currently doing it. It wouldn't hurt just to wait till the end of the week, and then at our March 9th meeting, take it up.
Mike, Jimmy, anything?
Quick question. I know the position's been vacant for about 3 months, but when do we start the advertisement?
the advertisement started more than a month. I can't give you an exact date, but it has been right afterwards, I believe, when she left for the planning board.
No, actually, you make a good point. The 28th is the end of this week, so when we plan on putting it on our agenda for the 9th and get that
Okay.
vacancy filled.
Yeah, I mean, just put somebody on the board for them, and we can always, if the person doesn't work out, we have every right to remove the person, right? Is that right?
Of course.
Am I wrong?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, all right, okay.
Well, we don't,
I thought you were Italian.
It's not easy.
All right, so we'll go to the next
End of this
meeting.
week.
The end of this week. That make sense to everybody?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Sorry for any confusion, guys.
No.
Okay, thank you, Paul. 316 is next, right?
We have an update on the sculpture park, Selectman Priest.
Oh, yes, so, nobody from the, committee could be here this evening, unfortunately, but, just general update, on our next meeting, the 9th, the goal is that the committee's gonna come in and give a final formal presentation on, everything, soup to nuts. So location, selected, sculptures, you know, how much money's been donated to date, just the whole gamut. But I believe the end goal to gain approval from us at that time. Just lost my train of thought, which is just the best. So I think at that time, you know, we can entertain all sorts of questions. I know there's been a lot of work being put in, a lot of submissions in terms of sculptures and artwork were collected. So I'm looking forward to it. I think maybe if anyone has any questions right now that you wanted to ask ahead of the presentation, I could try to field. Otherwise, I know that John Sachs and the group will be here. Just a quick update.
Gentlemen, any questions? Michael?
No, sir, I look forward to seeing them on the 9th, actually.
Okay, excellent, thank you. Nice work, thank you. All right, moving right along. How's my time work going?
Next up, Mr. Chairman, we have some budget reviews for the board. Whitney Haskell, Budget Director, is here. John Denizio, Assistant Town Administrator, Town Accountant, and we have a variety of budgets here for your review and approval. Hey, Whitney.
Hello,
Oh, yours, Whitney, go right ahead.
thank you.
Where we going first?
So we're gonna do sort of the same thing I did at the last meeting a couple weeks ago, where we'll have each department come up. I'll give a very brief overview of the department. We'll give them a chance to add anything that I might have missed, and then we'll turn it over to questions from the board. So can we start with Department 152, Human Resources?
Okay.
Joanne's here.
Hi, Joanne.
So Joanne's expense and special account lines are level funded for FY '21. The slight increase in salaries is driven by one of her employees moving up a step. Both the employees in the Human Resources Department are A&P employees, and those rates are not settled for FY '21, so any resulting increase would be transferred from negotiated settlements at that time. And turn it over to Joanne if she has any.
Nothing to add.
Comments?
I'm happy to present a very full budget for you
Yes.
this evening.
I've got a quick question for you. You're still splitting time between the two departments. How's that?
Correct.
How's that between the town and the school department?
Yep.
How is that?
It works fine. I spend about 2 days there and 3 days here. I have a set schedule that I try and stick with so people know where to expect me. But I can bounce back and forth as needed. And it works just fine. It's nice to be around different people and, you know, walking down the halls, people will stop you and go, oh, you're here, can I ask you a question? So it's nice to be out and about as much as possible.
Well, it's good, because when I was asking the question, I wanted to ask it the proper way, because I learned a lot today about questioning.
So far, so good.
I did, quite a bit. What to ask and what not to ask. So, no, that's the only question I had. Just the time slip between the two. That's all. So it's working out fine. What's that?
People seem to know where to find me.
Of course they do.
I found her last week. I had a question for her. I went down and found her.
You didn't know you have a beeper in your purse that we have, a little chip that goes in there? We know where you are all the time. Well, that's the only question. Gentlemen, any questions?
No.
No? We're good. All right.
Do you want
Thank
to
you.
vote them as they come up?
Yeah, I think we're better off that way.
Chairman, or we can
Yeah,
wait to the end,
okay.
whatever you feel is appropriate.
So, can I get a vote on this?
Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the human resources budget as presented.
Second.
Motion made in second. All those in favor? Aye. 4-0-0. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne.
Thank you again, Joanne.
So next up, we have Department 155, Management Information Systems, AKA MIS. Jose is here. So MIS expenses include all relative costs to the town's technology systems. Some of the major drivers of this budget for FY21 include increasing costs of our Munis financial software, our Viewpoint permitting software, and specific to this year, an email archiving backup system. The salaries are essentially level funded as all employees are A&P. And then one other thing we wanted to mention tonight was MIS has 2 items in the other accounts category, which is sort of a capital item that's funded through the operating budget for, in the past, it's been a 5-year lease for technology infrastructure items. So that lease is coming up, and they're working on getting a new lease for that, as well as some cybersecurity improvements. So we just wanted to give a heads up that that's in that section of the operating budget, and also that there'll be an article at town meeting for the approval of those agreements, as they're likely to be more than 5 years. And with that, I'll turn it over to you if you have anything to add.
I'll wait for the questions.
Okay. Well, in that case, we'll turn it over to questions.
Good answer.
So, let's start with Nick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jose, the cloud email archiving request I see here, what does that entail, and how long do we have to hold digital archives of things as a municipality?
According to the law, that varies. I think preliminary, you have to have 3 years that data backup and produce a restore if you are requested. I think it's by law. But in the case of you postpone the time.
Okay.
To whatever that takes. I think it's 7 years.
Sure, okay. And then with regard to cybersecurity, it's funny, I just emailed Jerry the other day saying that I keep missing the ISAC meetings because they're either like on this night or I've had,
Yeah, I guess
scheduling problem, but.
we did it on purpose, so you wouldn't. No, I guess everybody knows what is going on with cybersecurity right now. If you go, watch it in the news or read the paper or check it on the web, there are a lot of municipalities that are being attacked, and we're proposing to get some tools that will help us fight that fight, if you want to put it that way. Nothing is perfect, and we are growing with more tools, and on the other side, the bad people also probably get something new just to counterattack whatever you are implementing. So it's a never-ending work, if you want to put it that way.
Right. Now, with regard to and I haven't looked at the capital improvements area of the budget, but with regard to the enterprise security solutions here, is this first year just around a strategy plan, or are there actual tools that we can begin implementing?
There are 2 aspects on that. One is about the infrastructure. The infrastructure is going to be for the next 5 years, what we're proposing. And on the security tools or cyber security tools, that is also a 5-year plan.
Okay.
I guess I answered your question.
Yeah, so I assume there's going to be some sort of initial, contract, strategic, evaluation of some kind before they begin implementing anything.
Right. We on on the tools part, we are evaluating some of the tools that we would like to use.
Okay.
We haven't decided yet, but we already know that the value or how much it's gonna cost the town.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you.
Michael?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jose, thank you for being here tonight. I know you and Joe and the rest of your team, I see you people all over this town.
That's good.
And it is good, no, it's very good. But from time to time, I do see you all stuffed into that little closet you got your work out of down over in the annex. So my question is, maybe it should be directed to Paul or Mr. Sanchez or something. What are your needs currently and going forward in terms of space? I don't see anything in the budget for additional space.
No, we haven't put nothing on the budget yet, but I think it's, you have a good question. I think it's time for us probably to expand a little more. One of the issues that we have is that we have a little space, as well as you know. What happens is if when a person gets sick, kind of cascades into the others one, so we gotta talk to Paul, to see if we can move a little away from each other.
Yeah.
And our job is not that it's changing, but we are growing with the necessities in the town and the schools. So yes, we are called MIS, but now we are embracing the cybersecurity, and Joe, Buongiorno, and I are being more in a room apart just because we don't want to get everybody else distracted on what we're doing. And everybody needs to do their job. So that's why we're kind of separated and going in that little room that you're talking about.
Yeah.
We are usually fighting each other over there, right? But yes, this is going to be a talk probably for, I would say, next fiscal year.
Okay, so it should be on our radar. I'm sure it's already on your, I'm sure you're aware of it, Paul, as
Well, if
I am.
anybody knows of any available space in the town buildings, please let me know, because we're running out, so. It's a real
get it.
problem. I think, we used to have conference room down in the basement, it's now HR. We used to have another conference room down at the annex, now it's MIS, so we are definitely pressed for space. So I think, Jose, I think you have an office at the school department, so you end up being pretty lucky over there, right?
It depends how you see it, because I work next to
It
the
sounds like a no from what I'm hearing.
I work next to the server room, so the noise and the AC keep us, us awake all the time. So I'm getting deaf too. So. I will manage for the time being.
Okay, thank you.
Jeremy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of quick questions. I know physically you need more room. How about like with our storage capacity as far as storing all our data? Everything, every day, everything becomes more and more digitized. Are we okay with enough, do we have enough physical storage or digital storage for our stuff?
Yes, actually, recently we just moved 2 old racks that we had with some audiovisual equipment from, I guess, 10, 20 years ago. I really cannot say how old that was, because it hasn't been turned on ever since I've been here. So we just moved those 2 racks, and if capital is approved for next year, we're gonna put 2 new server racks and then get the new equipment. So yes, to answer your question, we have room.
Okay, just what, can I do one more? I just want to thank him for keeping us out of the headlines. Glad we're not in the headlines, but to that point, are you able to tell us how many times, or how many cyber attempts are made on us, on the town? Or?
Not really. We have some tools, but they are a little behind. I just don't want to say what names or whatever, but we have a feeling that constantly you are being attacked. If you just look at logs, you can see, who is trying to penetrate on whatever port. But what we want to implement is more of an alarm system. So instead of being reactive to a problem, you are more proactive. So something happens, you just get an alarm, you just look at it, and it's not as tedious or will take as much time as it's taking right now for us to investigate and trying to resolve. We have Joe that constantly is looking onto our firewall and the endpoints solution that we have, and every day we find new stuff, and every day you just, trying to do your best, the best with what you have. But one obvious problem over here is email, and this is not just here. Don't think that it's just the town. It's everywhere. Email is would be the easiest tool that people would use in order to attack. Why? Because it's not secure by itself. Second is that, there are some of us that would get a message and just click here, and later on, you know what you click on. So.
Oh, just a quick follow-up. Maybe we can somehow send out townwide to all the employees on a regular basis, and for the new employees, a protocol for email.
Good point. Yeah, you have a very good point. I don't know if it was mentioned to you before, but we just got awarded by the state of Massachusetts with a cybersecurity training. We just started the testing part. We will end up the end of this month, and the real training for all employees in the town and the staff members in the schools will start next week, and I think it's going to be running until mid-October.
You good now?
Good.
Okay, great. I'm all set. Everything was answered. Paul?
No,
Anything?
we need a vote.
Yes? We're just,
Motion to approve MIS budget as presented.
Second.
motion moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 400, Betty.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jose.
So next up, we have
Wait,
Department.
hold on 1 second. Is he all set?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much for attending tonight. You did a great job, and I hope your mother taped it for you. All right? Thank
Good
you.
night.
Thank you.
Have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, Whitney.
Next, we have Department 543, Veteran Services. So, the Veteran Services salaries increased by 2.5% as both employees are moving up a step in their respective positions. The FY21 rates for the BMEA Administrative Assistant is settled and included. The Director position is A&P, so it's budgeted right now at the FY20 rate. And Chris's expenses and special account lines are level funded for FY21.
Okay. Thank you, Whitney. Questions? Nick?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chris, seeing here that it says that things can swing dramatically from year to year, how do you plan beyond a year? Like, are you able to look at, the veterans you have in your queue? I mean, like, how does it work?
Outside
Really?
from playing God, I look at it as you can kind of guess based off an age.
Yeah.
But like I said, we lost Mr. Decaro this year at 94, World War II hero. And nobody really expects to live much beyond 94, so you can kind of look at that. But him passing, we gained an additional 4 people. So the budget amount in the aid account is at 110,000. The way that I somewhat look at that is unless I'm getting an additional, I would say 8 to 10 people in a year, at the very least that 110,000 can carry us over through the fiscal year. And the reason why I say that is because 75% of that account is actually reimbursed through the state. So the town has to have the allotted money in there. And that's done through a different budgeted item. I think it comes back into the general fund. So it doesn't come back into the veterans account. But let's say that there was, an instance where 4 or 5 additional people needed to come in. It would be a special meeting where I would have to come in front of the selectmen to ask for additional funds. But what I would say in my lack of concern in regards to that is out of the 110,000, really, the town's only budgeting about 35,000 of it.
Okay.
So it is a program through the state. As long as I am certified through the state, 75% of that aid is being refunded back to the town.
Okay. And in terms of outreach to veterans, how are you finding veterans? How are veterans finding you? Like, how does it all work?
Surprisingly enough, I'm actually meeting more and more veterans through the Housing Authority. And the reason for that is because in order for them to be accepted into the Housing Authority, and we're just talking older veterans right now, I get an email from the Housing Authority and I have to approve their DD-214. And then I find out that they're in the system, and it's kind of a good system, at least for me, that I know that, number one, you got an older veteran that is on a limited budget. And I know that they're now moving into town if they get accepted through the Housing Authority. In regards to younger veterans, the state has actually done a fantastic job in the last 3 years of notifying each VSO of someone that is getting out of the military and is retaining the town of Burlington as their home of record.
Okay.
So the state will notify me with an individual of the address that they're going to, along with the cell phone number. I'm finding out more and more that a lot of the reasons why that might be the case is this veteran just didn't update their home of record. So, it says, next of kin is their family. So let's say they came from Burlington, their next of kin is their parents who live in Burlington, but they're like, oh no, I moved to Ohio, which is perfectly reasonable, but it does give me an opportunity to find out at least people that are directly coming out of the service. Now, everybody in between, that's kind of a catch-22.
Yeah.
Try to get out there as much as possible. I do actually run into a lot of veterans through the Memorial Day and Veterans Day programs. So that's a way.
All right.
And then through the veteran service organizations as well, whether or not it's the Legion, the VFW, the Marine Corps League, or the DAV.
Well, thank you for everything that you're doing. And thank you for being so budget conscious. I know, like last year, you were negatively funded, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, I appreciate you being so conscientious with the taxpayer dollars as it pertains to your budget.
Well, it's one of the benefits of actually living in town is I don't want my tax-paying dollars to go to waste. So.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Wait,
Michael?
no, sir.
Jimmy?
I'm good.
You good? Okay, I need a vote on this, so,
I'll make a motion to approve the Veteran Services budget as is.
motion made and seconded by Mike. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so 4-0-0, Betty. All right, thank you, sir.
Well,
I'm going
we
to stick
still need
around.
them.
for the next one.
Next up, hand it.
Next, we have 590 disability access. So the salary line has a slight increase due to the commission's recording secretary rate increase, but the expenses are level funded.
Motion to approve the disability access
Motion made,
committee fund.
Second.
seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 4-0-0.
Thank you very much.
All set.
Thank you.
There you go. Thank you, Chris. All right, moving right along.
Just stepped out.
Yeah, we're at buildings though. Right?
We just stepped out.
You might have to skip over them.
Yep. So the next one.
Yeah.
Okay, so next we have DPW.
You got it.
He's
He's
out.
not here either. Okay.
They're both out there.
Bring the chief in.
Everybody loses. Chief,
Let
what?
the- let the- Hey, come on, chief, let's go.
The guy just,
Chief, hey,
tried. Solidarity.
Rachel wants to go home, look at her. Tried.
Okay, so as, this is, I think in the binders it's listed as Department 400, but it actually encompasses a number of departments within that, including the administration, engineering, building and cemetery, highway, central maintenance, water and sewer. Did I get all of them? The salaries increased slightly. The BMEA and DPW contracts are settled for FY '21, so those rates are included. And there's also a request for 2 additional laborer positions in water and sewer, which I'm sure John can discuss in further detail. The expense budget is increasing slightly as well, and the major driver of the special account increase is the cost of waste collection and disposal, those contracts increasing. And with that, I will turn it over to John if he has anything additional.
I think if I may, Mr. Chairman, I think the biggest push that we're doing this year, which actually we've done this every year, like for the last probably 3 or 4 years, is for the employees in the water division. So it actually goes back more than 3 or 4 years, but we thought that all the economic development that was happening in town was going to slow down. I'm going back now to 12 years ago. I feel we can go through a couple of years and wait it out, and then our guys will go back to whatever they were doing before. Well, it's been, in my case, like 12 years of more and more tending to new properties, marking out for new buildings, tear downs on houses they have to work on, new houses constructions. Every one of them has new meters. And it seems that we're spending more and more time doing the work for the town to keep on growing while keeping our maintenance to the side. And like I said, over the last 3 years, I made the push for it. And this year, I just feel that we cannot wait any longer. We've been postponing a lot of our water maintenance as hydrants, water gates, and things of that nature, which is time that we actually get new forces in it, in the department to work on areas that we've been putting aside. Like I said, the town has been requiring more work of us, and we have tended to the work, and it's time that we actually start tending back to what we need to do to maintain our system. Of all the departments, there's needs in all the departments as well, whether it's cemeteries, we've grown actually, we have new sections, whether it's the highway division, facilities as well, but the big push for this year is on the water side. That's why the other ones, I'm not even mentioning the other ones, it's not that they do not exist, it's that I'm going for the one that is most needed right now.
Thank you. Gentlemen, Jim?
Just a quick question, a request, not to do with this meeting, but at a next meeting or a future meeting, can you give us an update on the MWRA?
Absolutely.
It doesn't have to be done tonight.
No, just very, very briefly, because it's very timing, the question. We did get a draft EIR, and we're responding to that, which we hope to do over the next 2 weeks, which will get us to the final step of the permitting process. Now, after that, it'll take several months, but we're trying to meet the next deadline, which is actually March 2nd. We'll hopefully do that. If not, it's going to be another 2 weeks after that, but that's what we're pushing for right now.
Thank you. Mike?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. All right, I don't have the full budget in front of me. I just have sort of a synopsis. So what you just mentioned regarding manpower and being able to get to some things that you've put on the back burner, are you suggesting additional employees in this year's budget?
Yes, 2 entry-level laborers, yes.
Now, have you, I think I may have brought it up in the past, have you considered offering this type of work, opening gates and exercising, flushing hydrants and those kind of things, after regular working hours or on weekends to your staff at a cost of overtime rather than hiring additional manpower?
We've been doing that. We've been trying to catch up. It's just not enough hours. And there's a point too with the employees. I mean, you do want them to have time off. I'll give you an example of just Saturday. This Saturday as an example. So because we're so far behind, we have a sewer crew in to do some sewer flushing that we need to complete. At the same time, we have a water crew doing some appointments that we need to complete. And then Saturday, we have a water main break. So the good news is we already had the crews here. But then they work the whole day tending to the water main break. So there is also work that happens in overtime, unfortunately, for our people. So there's only so much that we can do. And yes, they do work Saturdays. But now with the good weather, we're going to have them working probably 2 nights a week because the days are longer, overtime that is.
but it's just not enough to fill that gap. It's just not enough.
Okay, because I think obviously there's going to be a downside. It's going to subside, all the reasons you mentioned earlier for why we're falling behind in some of these housekeeping matters. So you're saying you're already exercising that option of weekends and after hours?
Yes, we are. And it's not enough. So I'm very conservative when it comes to budgeting. I think you noticed that over the years.
I know we haven't really haven't added
right
to our boots on the ground.
And even when we started with facilities and others, I tried to start on the low side, and if we need to build up, we'll build it up as opposed to going high. But when we're to the point that we are right now, I'm starting to feel uncomfortable that if we don't maintain our distribution system particularly, we're just going to have problems going forward.
All right, but and the other thing, I'm not going to belabor the thing, we're eventually going to be closing the water treatment plant, so you're going to have a couple of bodies over there that eventually are going to be absorbed into the division as well.
And that's correct, and we've been looking at that as well, but we also see some attrition that may be happening over the years, and that's something that I spoke with Paul about. As that time comes in, we also see other people within the department leaving, so there will be a good opportunity not to fill those jobs when the time happens.
Okay, and I mean, obviously, it's widely reported in the media, the disposal issue. I see it's driving your budget a little bit higher again this year. Any solutions in sight for the recycling issues?
You know, it's very, very timely. There are two major things happening right now, if I may. Recycling being one of them. We see opportunities coming forward in the next few years, maybe 3 to 5 years. There is new industries coming in. There is a new paper mill that is getting built in New England, which we haven't had a new one in years. So there's going to be an opportunity to bring paper and cardboard there for recycling, which we haven't had that. And there's also some in New York and Western Mass that are coming into play. It's not easy to permit any of these places, so it's going to take some time to get them built. But we do see that we're going to have something coming in the mid-range, helping us when it comes to that. In the meantime, though, we are in a very bad position when it comes to the expense. Good news is that when we negotiated the last contract, we capped the amount of Burlington pays to process the recyclables, and that cap is $60 per ton. I don't know if you read recently in the paper that we're talking $95 to $100 a ton other towns are paying. So at least we're below that number. But it's still a high number. We went from 0 to $60 a ton. And if that's not bad news enough, at the same time that this is happening, Massachusetts is running out of places to bring the trash. They've been closing down facilities where used to process solid waste. And because of that, now the cost of disposal of trash has been going up. We're paying about $72.50 this year, I believe. I think that's the number. And in the near future, we're going to go to $90 per ton. Over the next 2 years, it's going to ramp up to that. It's a high number. There are communities that are already paying that today. So again, we had a long-term contract that is going to end next year, so at least we benefited from that. But there is not much we can do about that. We've been looking at alternatives to even bring in our solid waste out of state, trucking it or via rail. And by the time you add the transportation costs, it works out to be about $90 a ton. I mean, of course, they already did the math. Am I right? That's how it works. But we're still looking at those alternatives, if possible. But those two things are really conspiring to create a big problem with our budgets in the next couple of years.
And I know you do work hard, John, at keeping your budget. Look at the largest single budget on the town side, and you're in it around 3%. So I'm going to applaud you for that, as well as everything you do on a regular basis. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Chairman. Mr. Priest.
Just a follow-up question, Mr. Chairman. John, knowing that the costs are rising and that facilities are shutting down, that no one wants to take our trash or recycling, I was just reading that over the holidays, India was even shutting down or being more discriminatory with how they were accepting paper. Doing bail inspections and then rejecting whole shipments based on failed metrics of what they were looking for. At this level, is there anything that we can have residents do, or are there any kind of like local initiatives that we can try to give a shot at? I mean, obviously, like finding other places to put our trash is trying to find alternatives in that vein, but just reducing the amount of tonnage that we're putting out. Is there? I mean, it's a crazy question because I mean, how do you actually get it away? But I mean, do we implement more composting? Do we get involved in a composting program? What can we be doing? What can we be helping our residents do? And I'm not saying you have to answer this right now. It's almost a rhetorical question to kind of like limit the amount of tonnage leaving Burlington.
So I should, when it comes to the organics, and that's that's DEP's solution to the solid waste problem is, we should go organics, and then all of a sudden we're going to reduce the solid waste by half, and everybody's happy. So in theory, it sounds great, right? So for us, and with the cost and solid waste that we have currently, for us to be able to even break even, if we want organics, the cost per home will have to be less than $1 a week to create a new waste stream that we go home by home, picking up your organics and bringing it to another facility. There are companies out there that are doing it, and people are actually paying themselves for the service.
Yeah.
And I know that in Burlington and they're paying $5 a week to have the service right now. And anybody can actually do that on their own if they wanted to. To do it on the municipal level, like I said, it will have to cost the town less than $1 per household per week for us to break even. So those solutions all look great environmentally. They take a lot in the budget.
Yeah.
So unfortunately,
Right.
and that's how it works. And recycling is the biggest thing that we had. For instance, even before the crisis that we're having, the cost of recycling ton per ton has always been more than the cost of just picking up trash and burning it ton per ton. So it has always cost us more to recycle on a tonnage basis. But at one point, it was closer, Right now, it's costing us about $200 a ton to take the trash and bring it to the incinerator, and about $300 a ton to take the recyclables. It's like a 50% increase on the cost of processing recyclables. So there's really not a lot of alternatives right now, unless the people on their own will like to certain things and recycle more. And by recycle, I mean all the items that a lot of them shouldn't even go in the trash, whether it is clothes that can be actually given to Salvation Army or things like that, appliances that get tossed away, and things that actually weigh a lot, is a lot of weight for us to carry. That could be like free cycle and or Craigslist, or I'm not suggesting that people use that, but it's an example. There's a lot of avenues, and I know me personally, I use those. I don't like throwing stuff in the trash, so I got to make sure that it's going to go to a place where it doesn't create a problem. So and those solutions are there right now. It just takes people to want to do it.
Right. All right. Thank you, John. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Anybody else? All set? We have a motion on this?
Motion to approve the DPW budget as presented.
Motion made and seconded, right, by Nick. All those in favor? Aye. 4-0-0, Betty.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Nice job, Rachel.
Thank you.
Okay, next up we have Department 241, which is building. The major driver to the building department salary budget is the increase due to the additional inspector position, which we actually added in this current fiscal year at a half year. Now for next year, it's going to come in at the full year. On top of that, we also have some employees that are still moving through steps. The building department expense budget, this increase was mostly driven by the request for the purchase of a printer, copier, scanner that's can be used for the plans, and this is reflected specifically in the materials and supplies line of the expense budget. Those are the major items. I will turn it over to Andy if he has anything to add or if we have any questions.
Just add to the printer scanner and the plotter that we have. It's a, we purchased this when we brought on Viewpoint permit tracking. It will allow us that as we take paper plans or documents, we can scan them in and then put them into the computer-based permit tracking software that we have now. This machine is also being used by the Planning Board and the Conservation Commission with their applications and paperwork, and Planning Board is making a big effort, and I believe Concom is doing the same thing, to take a lot of their back files and scanning them in and getting them into the system so they can reduce their paper storage. So it's worked out pretty well for us. I've had no problems with it. Computer system that we've got going with Viewpoint has worked out well with us, as long as our tablets that we use out in the field, which we can pretty much pick up any bit of information we want on a particular project when we get there, or to inquire about a project as to its status. Allows all of us to be able to talk to each other all at the same time.
Gentlemen, Jim.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Andy, since you've taken over as building inspector, have you noticed if the number of building permits are increasing, decreasing, or status quo?
Decreasing. We had a huge boom these last several years, as Mr. Sanchez has stated. This year we're down in permit numbers. We only issued about 3,400 permits. However, our inspections went up because we were so busy in these past years issuing the permits. We're still consecutively doing all of our inspections, so our inspections were up to over 8,500 inspections this past year. Our permit fee in was only 1.9 million collected, which was down from the previous years, but we're still active. And if some of these projects which have planning board approval, and if the projects, the interest of the people who are calling our office come through, this next year is going to be just as busy as these last couple of years have been for our office.
Just a quick follow-up. So even though the number of actual permits being issued
is dropped,
the inspections, that can last for years, correct?
Correct.
On a single permit?
Yep. Especially with your new building about to come online at 20 Corporate Drive, the 270 apartments. They'll be coming on for occupancy here in the very near future. So you're just down there itself, we're looking at a couple thousand inspections that we've had down there for the whole staff to review and look at that project as it's going through its construction process.
Thank you.
Michael?
No, sir.
Priest?
No, sir.
No, sir. Okay. Motion on this.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the building department budget as presented.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Okay, good night, Andy.
Thanks, Andy.
Okay, moving right along.
So next up, we have Department 210, the Police Department. Bill, this is one of our largest budgets. It's probably one of the easiest to present for FY21. The chief has level funded his expense and special account budgets. The salary increase is driven by the addition of one patrol officer, which is the last year of a 5-year plan. The command contract is settled for FY21, so those positions are budgeted at the new rates. The patrol contract is not yet settled, so those positions are budgeted at the FY20 rates. And again, any increase would be transferred in from negotiated settlements. And with that, I will turn it over to the chief if he has any comments or questions from the
Yeah,
board.
just a couple things. That fifth officer, part of the 5-year plan, that's budgeted 6 months, so that's not going to kick in until January. So it's half a budget. And also within this is, for several years now, we've had a grant for a substance abuse counselor, substance abuse coach, Margie Taylor, who does a wonderful job. That was through the Perry organization. We shared Margie with Wilmington, Woburn, and RPD the last couple of years. I don't think originally we were sharing her, Jimmy, but
No.
that kind of. Anyways, that grant is coming to an end. I think we've had at least 3 years, maybe 4. There is a position in here, a 19-hour-a-week unbenefited position for Margie as a recovery coach. And also within that, we have a grant-funded mental health clinician that Cummings grant funded for $100,000. She has been with us for 2 years, I believe. That is going to be coming to an end in April. So there's 2 months for funding, again, for part-time position without benefits for our mental health clinician. So those are 2 added things in our salary line that, in the part-time salary line, that bumps that up a little bit. But, and I think Jimmy can attest to this because he works very closely with both of them. They've become an integral part of the department. You'd be shocked at how busy the mental health clinician is. And Margie, none of us have to look too far until we can find a family that's been touched by substance abuse. And quite frankly, Margie is very excited about working just for Burlington and working under our umbrella rather than Perry, because she feels she can do a lot more. She's kind of been, Perry has certain restrictions and rules, and she really thinks she can expand that program, so she's quite excited.
Fantastic, thank you, gentlemen.
Mr. Chairman, just for the record, I won't be voting on this budget, but I do want to follow up with some of the things the chief said, that as far as the substance abuse disorder and the work that Margie does, she not only assists the person involved, but the family, and she goes, the extents that she goes through to get the help for, someone or their family. I mean, it's incredible, the things that she does. And on the other side, the mental health clinician, Karen, I say this, and I mean this in all honesty, she works the least amount of hours, but does the most amount of work, because every phone call she takes is a phone call the police department doesn't have to deal with. Because she does, we put the bandage, the police department puts the bandage on the problem, she does the long-term therapy, and she's just constantly busy, as like the chief said. And it would be a disservice for the town to lose either one of them because of the amount of work they do and the quality of work they do. So I'll just leave it at that, and I won't be voting on this budget.
Okay, thank you. Gentlemen, anything?
Mr. Chairman, both of those positions were listed by the board as priority items, so we did discuss with the chief that it was important to try to maintain the funding for those positions once the grants expired, so.
Okay, great, thank you.
We heard you, and we discussed it with police, and we wanted to make sure that continued on.
That's a great thing. That helps out a lot of people, more than just the department, helps out a lot of people in general. As we all know, we've all been touched by that process in one way or another. So, any questions?
No, Mr. Chairman, if I may, though, I just want to say, to echo what Jim was saying, and just in general, thank you, Chief, and to the police department for having positions like these, knowing that substance abuse and mental health issues are so pervasive in our community these days. And not just being Burlington, I mean, just the nation as a whole, really. And, knowing now that everything that you're doing and everything that Youth and Family Services is doing and everything even the school system is doing to try and help, and catch things beforehand and do the kind of follow-up that Margie and everyone is doing afterward is just incredible. And, I mean, it's roles like these that, communities need to have. They aren't, nice to haves. They really are need to haves now. And I just want to, make that point. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
And just a little, Margie and Karen, they do phenomenal. Again, you gotta have the right people in those positions, and we were fortunate enough to get two of the right people. They are incredible, both of them. And they fit within the PD, flawlessly. They're part of the PD family.
Michael?
No, sir.
No. Chief, one quick question. With the new, additional new parole officer, how are we with staff?
Well, it's interesting. So this fifth officer will bring us up to 69, and that's where we, 5 years, felt we needed to be. But as I tell people, you're going to be at 69, at 69. So currently, right now, we have 3 in the academy. We're going to be bringing 4 more in front of you. So there we're at 7. So we're down 7 now that aren't on the street. I've got a couple out long-term injuries. So, even though you're going to be at 69 next January, in all reality, and Jimmy, you can back me up on this, we're probably never above 60 to 62. You know what I mean? It's kind of like a dog chasing its tails. And it's not Burlington. It's like that within every department, because you're going to have people retiring,
Yep.
people getting injured. Then you have, the short-term things, a death in the family, someone out sick for an off-duty injury, things of that nature. So, you're never at that number of 69, but, we do pretty well moving the chips around to keep all the shifts covered.
Great. Okay. It is what it is, right?
That's
what I
it.
say. All right, gentlemen, motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the police budget as presented.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
One abstention.
One abstention. 3-0-1. Chief, thank you.
Thank you for your
All
support.
right.
Much
Thank you.
appreciated.
Absolutely.
Have a good night.
Let me take over a second. I have to use the, you can stay right there. All right. We can move over.
All right. Whitney, next one, next,
So last but not least, we have Department 135 Accounting. The major driver to the accounting budget for FY21 is the movement of the purchasing financial analyst position from the Selectmen's budget, which we discussed at the last meeting, and absorbing that into the accounting department. So since most of the accounting department's budget is made up of salaries, when you add an additional person, obviously that makes the percentage increase look pretty large, but that's the story behind that. So we're moving the person from the Selectmen budget into accounting. And expenses are level funded for FY21, and John is here.
So I just wanted to say, Mr. Sanchez and Chief Kent and I, we all agreed we're going to resist the urge to compare Havoc's dog years in 7-1 to town administrator years at this meeting. And just one thing to point out was that the other account that we are responsible for submitting in the accounting office is with the audit. You already approved that at your last meeting as part of central administration, and that was level funded this year too. So I just wanted to make sure we just got another plug for level funding something.
all right. Thank you. I'm just gonna ask my question. I'll turn it back to the chairman over here. What is the status of the audit for last year? Is it complete?
The audit for FY19 is complete, in time for us to submit the TAFR, which they have done here for 5 years in a row now, or maybe more than that, and spoke to the audit person last week about getting a meeting scheduled, so we'll be having a meeting soon, Jim.
Very good. Mr. Chairman, I'll turn it back over to you.
I don't know where you were, so just run with this one and we'll go from there.
Accounting, I just asked a question
Yep.
about accounting, and
Anybody else?
Chris had not chimed in.
Would you, gentlemen, any questions?
I don't, no.
Ooh, questionable.
I know, I'm just, he's a pretty cool customer. I've been impressed with Mr. Denizio since he's come on board. He handles himself very well behind that desk. I see some of the ways and means meetings as well. So that's all I had, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. On that, do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion, we approve the accounting budget as presented.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
4-0-0, Betty. Nice job, Mr. Denizio. Whitney, fantastic
Whitney.
job.
Thank you, Whitney.
Thank you. Okay, we're gonna move right along. We're gonna start with with subcommittees, and we'll start with Jimmy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of things from the fire department. The Mass Office of Emergency Medical Services sent out an inspector to the new fire headquarters this past Friday. They inspected the ALS, the Advanced Life Support Equipment, and reviewed the policies and procedures. The inspector was pleased with what he saw and is going to recommend that the process for licensing move forward. On behalf of the Selectmen and the Fire Chief, we would like to thank Lieutenant Mark Saya and firefighter paramedic Thomas Monagle for all their efforts in preparing the fire department for that inspection. Then members of the fire department have been training on self-rescue under supervision of Captain Mark Cedrone. A series of props were assembled at Station 2, and firefighters were required to maneuver their way through the props while wearing full structural firefighting gear and self-contained breathing apparatus. The department's Mayday policy and emergency radio communication policy was also tested at that time. The fire department received a second washer/extractor grant through the Executive Office of Public Safety and the Department of Fire Services. This is a total of 2 combined grants, which was with $10,000, and this will allow the department to replace its aging washing/extractor at headquarters. That's the fire department. Regards to other public safety, the police department, Mr. Hogan's not here, so I'll speak on his behalf. The new hands-free law went into effect yesterday, and just to remind people, can no longer drive, holding your cell phone. As other cities and towns are doing, the police department will be monitoring, issuing warnings, and then in April, it turns over to a money fine, as well as surcharges. And the last thing I want to mention is Selectman Priest and I attended the People Helping People annual wine tasting fundraiser at the Cafe Escadrille yesterday. A huge thank you to Mr. Bob Murray, because he donated everything on behalf of the Cafe Escadrille. Everything was donated. A huge success for People Helping People. It was their 9th year running this. Next year will be their 10th year, and hopefully it will be bigger and better than yesterday, but it was it was an overwhelming success. I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you. Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have had 2 meetings at that Northwest Park Housing Committee. That's for the town meeting approved initiative for some 300 units of senior housing. We're still working on some guidelines, and the board will be updated shortly on that progress, since we will be responsible for signing off on those agreements. Secondly, I'd like to extend my condolences to the Brown family. I think we're all aware. Very large extended family here in Burlington, has had a presence here for decades. Many of the children and in-laws are employed here in town. We've got family members at police, fire. We've got them in the school system. We also have some of the grandchildren. We're outstanding athletes in school. So bottom line is the services were very, very well attended by many of our town employees and our students at the school system. So again, we extend our condolences to the Brown family, and also to the Sorensen family, Judy Sorensen, who works in our building department, to her mom recently as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Priest?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was going to talk about the People Helping People event. Jim did that, and now I understand how you feel. We steal your thunder. Most of my subcommittees were actually talked about during tonight's meeting. I will also add, though, that our new Economic Development Director is doing a fantastic job, and I know we've all spoken with her at a given point, but I keep poking her for different questions and thoughts, and she's been very responsive and great, and I look forward to what she's going to bring to the community. I think it was a great addition. Thanks to town meeting for approving that. And I'll just add that this week is early voting. So if I stole that, did I steal it from you, Paul? I'm sorry. What goes around comes around, I guess. But I highly encourage folks to get out and vote. I don't care who you vote for, what you just go vote. Voter turnout is generally abysmal. I'm actually going to be talking. I'm sorry, did I steal it from you too? Sorry.
Well, you're crossing it off. You just feel the need to talk, don't you?
Repeat it because it's an important message. I had the opportunity to go to the Mass Municipal Association conference in January, where one of the select board members there is leading a community engagement effort along with someone that they've recently hired in Wakefield. I should have prefaced that by saying it was in Wakefield. And they saw a voter turnout go from 12% to 24%. They doubled their voter turnout. And I know that we're roughly at 12%, and our towns are fairly comparable, so I'm in conversations with her to understand what it is they're doing there. But, folks, get out and vote. We have early voting every day at Town Hall this week. So come and vote. If not, hopefully we'll see you on election day, primary day. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
Sorry for stealing your thunder.
Have a good night.
Nothing left on your list.
Nothing's on my list. So we're gonna go from that to, it was a great meeting. Mr. Sagarin, do you have anything for the?
I just want to give the official hours for early voting, 8 to 5 tomorrow, Thursday and Friday, and 8 to 7 on Wednesday. Right here in this room, you probably wouldn't have known it, but an hour before, this place was all set up for early voting. Pretty good amount of people showed up today, so.
300 and something, right?
Pardon me?
300 and something people showed up today?
It seemed like quite a few coming through the doors, considering if you look at the ballots, there's not a lot going on there. But
We really can't see with all the signs in town. You would never know. She did a great job with the signs.
Actually, you know what, it was such a glorious day today, I think people are just looking for an excuse to get outside, so that's probably accounting for some of the numbers they had today.
just another clerk-related item, and I'll just throw it out there since Nick stole my thunder, is, this is a year you'll get a town census and a federal census, and I think everybody's seen the commercials on television. It is very important to be counted, so please, it's not the same thing, so please do return both of them. They do say that the amount of folks that we have here in town does factor into funding levels that we receive from the state and federal government on some levels. So I would urge everybody to please fill out and return your census, both your town one and your federal one, when they're received.
Thank you. What else is on my list? Old business, new business, and citizens' time. So that's all we have for the night, folks. Do I have a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion